Hi everyone, Florence Theriault here, and I'm happy to be with you again to share some wonderful pieces. When I was contemplating how to arrange the video for this particular collection of dolls that I've been working with, I usually go by categories, and then I said, no, I'm going to go with the theme of what the auction is. Coming in on the holiday season, we use the theme, what every child does this time of year, their wish list. Here's what I wish that would come into my home for me to play with. And it turned out that it was a perfectly wonderful theme to use because the collections that we have for this auction really fall in the category of like a child visiting a toy shop and going in and saying, oh, I love this, or I love that, or this speaks to me. We have three important collections that we're selling in here, and when I started to think about it, each of these people, and let me tell you who they are. There's Val Starr from Florida, previously from Illinois. There is Jackie Barr from Salisbury, North Carolina, who specialized in Schoenhutz and cloth dolls. And there's Linda Levy, who is now in the Carolinas and previously in Florida, and she specialized in cloth dolls. And so we have all these pieces together just seem to speak to me to say this is like a toy shop. All of these people had one thing in common though, and that's what I want to convey today. They had a sense of play. They understood the importance of a doll in a child's life, in their nurturing and their growing. And even though they would look for beauty or special features and they saw the doll as art and they understood rarity pieces, they also, all three of these women collecting different types of dolls, captured the essence of childhood, which is play, which is learning and growing through the objects that they could handle and play with. So enough of that. Let's look. I arranged my table in the front to show you some of the varieties of dolls because I had so much fun working on this catalog because I had such a wide variety of objects that I could work with. So just to sweep across here, and I'm not going to spend a tremendous amount of time on each piece because I just want to give you a perspective of the auction. Starting over here, we have a wonderful early doll by Kathy Cruz. An early doll, her name is Dorothea, and she was the Jubilee doll that was put out by the company celebrating their 25th anniversary year. So a very important doll in all original condition. This is the way you'd see her in the catalog. Of course, a Steiff teddy bear sitting in front of her with early button in ear, and there is another one on the table here you'll see. I love this kitchen. We have some wonderful dollhouse rooms in this catalog, and some of them from the remaining pieces that Margaret Lumia had held on to, and now moving, she's completely out of being able to have any kind of pieces of this size, so she gave us a few more of her remaining rooms that she had kept that were her favorites. And this early kitchen may be one of the finest I've seen. I just really love the architectural detail of it, how it's constructed and has all its original painting, and then of course all of the wonderful original accoutrements. And look at even the little tin lids on the pots, all matched and very different, the unusual type of the tin lids with the copper finish on them. Wonderful set. We have a great character boy here in the front. We have the tiniest Mein Liebling, well, I think there's a tinier one made, but this size is so great with his wonderful toddler body and his Tyrolean pants. Joel Ellis, wooden doll with black complexion, very rare and all original, almost impossible to find this doll. And look at this Kathy Cruz. I think we sold this originally, I'm not sure, because many of the pieces in their collections had come from us, and I love him, so totally original. Look at this costume, it's just perfect. Look at that deer face. He even has his mittens. If you wanted to have just one Kathy Cruz as an example in your collection, this could be it. In fact, I could pretty much say that of most of the pieces I'm showing here. One Joel Ellis, this could be it. One Mein Liebling, this could be it. This man, you're going to look for years and you're never going to find him again. Now let's move over to the other side and see what we have going here. This is a very rare early Simon & Halbig model. She was made with open mouth or closed mouth, and this particular version with a slightly parted lips is extremely rare, very hard to find, and just exquisite bisque. Look at this little tiny brew, the size you're all looking for these days. Wait a second, I gotta get some tag off of here. There we go. This is the size you're all seeking, and she is wonderful and even has her original signed shoes. And then another Steiff teddy. I know I'm talking fast, folks, but there's so much to show you, so just go with me and let's pretend we're in a toy store shopping. We have two examples of early closed-mouth Kestners right here, early, and each with a different style of face and such a sweet little size. And then look at this wonderful carriage with the painted decorations on the side. And we have a Schoenhoek Roly Dolly Santa, of which I'm going to show you an even rarer example in a few minutes. And then let's go and check this out. This was an automaton presented by Leopold Lambert. Of all of the Frenchmen and all of the automatons he did, this was one of the few that he actually deposed in the French courts. And when he wrote his petition paper to have it deposed, he actually wrote and said, I observed all of the movements and the motions of a child who is sitting on the floor playing with her toys, and I tried to emulate these as much as I could when I made the automaton. So let's see if we can get this little girl going. Now watch this. She's sitting on the floor, music is playing, leans back, leans forward, turns her head, lifts her sock. She's torn one shoe off and she's holding the sock of the other. And then she shakes the rattle in her hand, which connects to the little donkey and makes him nod his head up and down. And now she's kicking her foot again. All right, like she's trying to put her sock back on before she gets in trouble. And then she's going to do the donkey again. And then she's going to stamp her other foot in frustration because he won't behave himself. Isn't that a great piece? Entirely original. Original costume. Everything about this doll, this automaton, is absolutely perfect, and you just simply do not find them anymore. This rose silk material, when you can find it, is wonderful. So while we're doing automatons, I would like to tell you that we have some other wonderful automatons and mechanical hand wind toys coming up in the November 6 and 7 wish list auction. And I'm not sure a child ever had these particular Falba pieces on their wish list for Christmas, but I bet Mom and Dad did for their Victorian parlor, because they would be wonderful, wonderful entertainment in the Parisian salon when your friends would come. Falba did this whole series of these monkey-faced automatons, and what he was doing, it was making a mockery of the aristocracy at the time, and that's why you find them doing such wonderful antique pieces. They're personal favorites of mine. I love them. Now here's the guy, the chef, roasting. Now watch. He's stirring the pot, but he keeps taking a swig out of the bottle he's holding in his hand. And be sure to watch down in the front where there's a roast, because that roast is turning on the spit. Let's see if we can get it going here. And here he goes. Isn't he wonderful? He turns his head back and forth. His mouth hinges open and closed while he's drinking, and then also he's chattering away to people. His eyes open and close. He's stirring that pot, and look at the roasting meat down below. All original. Frenchman Falba, about 1880. Fabulous piece. And then if I could share the other one with you, I would like you to see. This one is also just absolutely wonderful. And so we have the aristocrat with his tricorn hat, and I want to just turn it for a minute so you can see how wonderful his costume is all the way around. Beautiful soutache gilt embroidery on there. and his monkey face, and his eyes will flutter back and forth, as well as his mouth opening, and his valet, who's, I guess he's a valet, but he sure still has to dress pretty fancy, and he's about to polish his shoes. And here we go. Chattering away, lifting his foot up and down, and vigorously polishing. The music is wonderful. Love this piece, absolutely great. Now I'm going to show you this wonderful little girl teaching her pup how to behave and to beg for a biscuit. It's done by Renew toward the end of the 1800s, when the automatons were being a little more simply made then, but the actions and the daily activity is so wonderful. I mean, I always think the way people react with their pets, nothing has changed. They still play with their pets the same way we play with them today. And here's a great example, although she really did dress her dog, and I hate when people dress their dogs. That's just me. Okay, so she has her little pup, and he's on this papier-mâché stool that she has, and he's dressed, and he is looking with his little gazing eyes, and if you have a dog, you know that look. He is looking at that biscuit she's holding in her hand. Okay, now watch what happens. Okay, he's putting his head back, please. And she's saying no, no, and then she wants him to perform a trick. So he leans forward and begs, and begs, and begs, and she gives him the biscuit. Well, maybe not. She's going to tease him. She's going to tease him. And he leans back and behaves and puts his paws back down. Now, have you noticed the entire time his tail is wagging back and forth? It's absolutely wonderful. This is so amusing. Okay, maybe simpler time, folks, but it's just so realistic. I want you to come in and show this puppy's face. Love this piece. Now, on the other side, we have another wonderful automaton with a very, very beautiful face, a beautiful earlier face, and this is the magician standing at thing. Waiting, waiting, lifting her vase of flowers to reveal nothing. Sometimes there'll be nothing there. And then she goes back, and then she lifts again, and we will see what appears. And there is a little ball that has appeared, a little wooden ball. It's a magician with surprises. There are actually 3 surprises which you can see if you look at the internal works. They work sporadically, so you never know which one is going to come up, and sometimes nothing comes up, or sometimes the same one repeats. But it's a great piece, and it's a nice petite size, which is what I like about it, in beautiful condition. Now, while the French were making their pieces toward the end of the 1890s, in that time period, the Germans also started to make a simpler type of toy, not with the complicated internal works that had to be wound from the side, but with one that you actually did hand wound the entire time you were playing with it. And this is an extraordinary piece. The basic woodwork around the bottom does need some work on it, but I've never seen one with 7 characters on it before. And it is a full orchestra, and watch. We have the orchestra leader, and he's vigorously leading the children. There are 6 different musical instruments. keeping time to the music, and you should look at their faces because they have wonderful faces. These are the original white caps on their head, which you could choose to add a cap as he has, or you could just have the white caps on their head, which was how they were made. Very, very wonderful piece. Zinner and Sohne from Germany. And Zinner and Sohne also made this wonderful little garden tea party. In this case, the hand wind is at the front. I'm going to see if I can do it and still show you. Little girls having tea in the garden and the puppy at their side, and there's the garden, the arbor of flowers at their back, little cakes on the table, and they do things. They pour the tea, they lift the cups up to their lips and take a drink, go back and forth, and music plays. When I think of the automatons, I think that the Zinner and Sohne smaller pieces are the ones that must have more appealed to children at the time. The other pieces are bigger and showier and more dramatic, and perhaps had more appeal to parents. But every time I see an automaton and I listen to its music, I try to remember during that time, music wasn't available the way it is now. You didn't have access to music instantly at the press of a button the way we have. And also the mechanical toys, they were simpler times. Things moved more slowly, and sometimes I wish we could go back to that. I mean, I was never there at that time, but if we could live in simpler times, that might be more interesting. If I were to choose my favorite of the whole auction, well, I could have a list of 10, but this would be really near the top. I love this doll. It will be the second time I have handled her, and I was able to find out much more about her this time than I was before. She was in the museum outside of Paris, the Musée Roboy-Fould, for a number of years, and before that, her history is so fascinating. Hey folks, you know, we say a lot of things about the internet or things that aren't pleasant, but you can do research on there now that you just couldn't ever do before. And this is so exciting to me because I was able to dig into a lot of information about her. I was quite fascinated by who she represented. And I was able to determine and find out from references that the museum had left, and also by doing research, that she represented Our Lady of La Salette. And let me tell you the story. In 1846, two young children, Maximum and Melanie, who were tending their family cows on a mountainside in the village of La Salette in the French Alps. And when they were there, they turned around and there was a woman sitting on a rock, and she was weeping, and she was wearing this coronet around her head. And they talked to her for a moment, and they turned around and she was gone. Well, they went back home and they told their parents about that, and the parents told the local people and the local church, and this investigation ensued as to what it could be and what it could be. And finally, some years later, in 1853, she was declared a saint and declared Our Lady of La Salette. And that entire part of France celebrated her. There were paintings, there were bronzes, there were sculptures that were done. People still have pilgrimages going there today. And one of the things that was created was this doll. Now, it's interesting that the doll is very clearly a French Voigt doll, papier-mâché doll by Andreas Voigt, who had been a German who went to France and started making his papier-mâché dolls there with the French kid bodies. These would be the first of the French fashion dolls. But in this case, the doll was used not as a fashion doll, but as a symbolic doll representing Our Lady of La Salette. And she's absolutely wonderful. The pieces about her are very, very symbolic. I'll come back to her headpiece in a minute. I want to turn her around the back, and we're showing you the globe that she is standing on. This is her original piece with a faux marble. This is wooden, but faux marble painting on it. And then on the bottom, there is a carving and a painting of a serpent and a bird and a star. Very, very symbolic celestial globe. She is standing on it. She has her classic French papier-mâché body with her little kid leather shoes, and then she's wearing this extraordinary satin gown with the pressed pattern on it, and beautiful, beautiful metallic gilt embroidery throughout. Very extraordinary, including the fringe. She's carrying a wonderful little reliquary with some writing and dates on it. She has her rosary and then she has this absolutely unique crown with the diamond point stars and the little faux diamonds on top with prismatic pieces in them. Very, very expensive to have produced at the time, and just absolutely perfectly preserved. Well, this was produced at that time, stayed in the family that had it for, well, from 1853 period up until the mid-1900s, when it went to the Musée Fouillé, where it stayed. And in 1907, the museum deaccessioned it, and we had it to sell here in America. It went to a home of a wonderful collector in New York State, and she preserved it until now, and she's selling her collection, and this piece has come back to us again to handle. The message that she gave the children, it was a message of hope and reconciliation. And I thought, wow, so this is so pretty important for us today. So here it is, Our Lady of La Salette, offering you her message of hope and reconciliation. Come to us now over 170 years after she was made. Fabulous piece.